Hi there, welcome to my course. In this lecture, you will learn about ethics and hacking. Ethical standards, certifications. Many information security certifications are now including ethical requirements to obtain and maintain the certification. One of the most well-known certifications, the CISSP, has the following requirements of their members ranked in importance as follows: protect society, the commonwealth and the infrastructure, act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly and legally, provide diligent and competent service to principals, advance and protect the profession. Contractor. Within the information security industry, there is no licensing body or oversight board that governs the behaviors and standards of penetration testers. Because of that, clients have no recourse other than within the legal system to correct bad behavior. Employer. Almost every company has an ethical standards policy. It may not relate directly to information security, but it is usually written at such a high level to encompass behavior in all activity during the course of doing business. It is not unusual for a company, when hiring a contractor, to require the contractor to adhere to their own ethics policy. Computer crime laws. Type of computer crimes and attacks. When you conduct a penetration test, you have to completely change your thought process. When you attack a network, you have to think of all the possible criminal activities you could perform and how you would manage to accomplish such a task. By placing yourself in the mind of a malicious hacker, you begin to see the threats in a different way. This allows you to present the worst case scenarios to the client during the reporting phase of the project. US federal laws. The laws are important to at least be familiar with. If you plan on conducting any sort of penetration testing, regardless if you are doing contract work or working as an employee, chances are one or more of these laws affect you or the systems you test, especially if your client or company has systems that maintain personal or financial data. 1970 US Fair Credit Reporting Act. 1970 US Racketeer, Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. Getting permission to hack. Confidentiality agreement. This is intended to protect the confidentiality and privacy of any information you gather during the project. Understand that when you sign this, you are not only promising to keep your client's data confidential during the course of the penetration test, you also promise to keep your client's data confidential the entire time you have it, that is, until it is properly destroyed according to an agreed upon timeline and method. Company obligations. Many people feel contracts primarily serve the interest of the company. After all, they have the money. Why shouldn't they get the most out of it? Even in adversarial negotiations, there is an assumption that give and take is a critical component to successful contract negotiation. No contractor should sign an agreement that does not benefit them, either in the short term or long term. That said, Let us look at company obligations from an ethical perspective where both the contractor and the company benefit. Hi there, welcome to my course. In this lecture, you will learn about hacking as a career. Network architecture. Penetration testers with a network architecture background can identify deficiencies in a large variety of network designs as well as the placement of elements within those designs. Deficiencies can involve different communication protocols used within the network as well as devices used to deliver and protect the communication traffic. Recently, there has been a greater need for penetration testers familiar with networks. Now that companies have finally recognized the value of information security, processes are in place to analyze applications and systems regularly, including corporate scanning and third-party audits. However, the networks have been neglected, often because of the misplaced belief that has been around for years that firewalls and intrusion detection systems are effective tools simply because of their presence in the network. The reality is that these network appliances are simply speed bumps, and network devices and communication protocols are just as easy, if not easier, to exploit as applications and operating systems depending on the skill of the network administrators. System administration. An additional advantage to system familiarization is related to the fact that the way into a system often involves human error, not an exploit. There are a lot of things that can be misconfigured in a system, which can be then used to gain access to the system. Knowing what to look for is much easier if you are already familiar with what a well and poorly designed server looks like. In this field, there are many certifications that can be obtained, including certifications specifically for security. Both Sun Microsystems and Microsoft have certifications targeting system security, as do other operating systems. Having these certifications can only help you on your path to become a penetration tester. Once you become comfortable in system design, there will inevitably be some crossover that occurs. If backups are done over the network, you may need to become familiar with network protocols. If you are responsible for a system that maintains an application that brings in multiple millions of dollars a month, you will undoubtedly become quite familiar with application and database security issues. Applications and databases. The people who specialize in this field typically understand what it takes to create applications and how they interact with databases. Often these same people understand how to create and interact with databases. This knowledge gives the penetration test professional an edge over the other areas of expertise, especially when conducting remote attacks across very secure networks. Inevitably, for an application to be beneficial, it needs to interact with people. If those people are on the internet, Hacking the application itself may be the only option available to a penetration tester. Security-related certifications for application and database penetration testers are much fewer in number than those associated with networks and systems. This makes it more difficult for someone who specializes in application and database penetration testing to enter into the field. Previous experience becomes critical when in job interviews for pen test positions. Often, companies you have worked for are reluctant to detail how effective you were in penetrating their defenses, making it that much harder to progress in this profession. Hi there, welcome to my course. In this lecture, you will learn about setting up your lab, personal lab. The primary objective of personal labs is almost purely educational and often used to replicate or create exploits. Keeping it simple, cost is usually a driver in trying to keep personal labs small and manageable, unless there is a need to include a lot of equipment. Labs can reside on a single system using virtual machine applications. There is also no need to maintain a large library of applications. Open source applications can be downloaded when needed, and systems can be reconfigured easily in small labs. Equipment. Although older computer equipment can be used in a penetration test lab, older equipment has additional costs not usually considered, including time and power. A personal lab that only focuses on application and operating system hacking does not require any advanced networking equipment, but does require a more robust computing platform to handle multiple VMs running simultaneously. When conducting brute force attacks or password attacks, faster processing speed is beneficial, something that older systems cannot always provide. Although older systems are easier to come by, they may actually be more of a hindrance than a help. Software. An advantage for anyone creating a personal lab is that in today's information technology environment, many applications used in corporate networks are open source, which are easy and free to obtain. Proprietary software, including OSs, is another matter. In personal labs, a thought choice needs to be made. Stick with all open source applications or purchase applications as needed. While Microsoft Developer Network has yearly subscriptions for many of the Microsoft products and may be a cost-effective alternative over the long run, older applications and OSs can still be purchased online. In some cases, trial versions may also be downloaded for free. Corporate lab. Internal labs. There is not much difference between internal and external penetration test labs with regard to hardware and software. The difference between the two groups of accessibility. Internal labs are placed within the corporation's intranet, which usually has fewer restrictions regarding access to network assets and servers. Penetration tests within a corporate network often yield greater successes than external pen tests, primarily because there is a pervasive viewpoint among system administrators that company employees should be trusted. External labs. In external pen test projects, the objective is to identify ways to penetrate through various obstacles in the network and gaining access to systems behind these defenses. To accomplish this task, penetration test systems need to be placed in an external network. Equipment. The equipment necessary to conduct internal or external penetration tests varies depending on the size and needs of the corporation. Generally, multiple platforms will be used to host different applications, such as vulnerability identification applications, vulnerability exploitation platforms, web scanners, and other general hacking tools. Protecting penetration test data. Encryption schemas. In a pen test lab, many different types of OSs and software applications are used. It is important to store these disks in a secure manner for the following two reasons. 1. Disks grow invisible legs and walk out of the lab. And 2. Integrity of the data on the disks is critical. Data encryption. With regard to install disks walking out, anyone who has had to support a network finds themselves short of disks. Sometimes it is because people borrow them or the network administrators forget and leave disks in CD trays. Data hashing. The issue of the install disk integrity is also a serious matter. Some OS and patch disks are delivered through well-defined and secure channels, but more often than not, patches and updates are downloaded directly over the internet. Hi there, welcome to my course. In this lecture, you will learn about creating and using pen test targets in your lab. Turnkey scenarios. What is a live CD? A live CD is a bootable disk that contains a complete OS capable of running services and applications, just like a server installed to a hard drive. However, the OS is self-contained on the CD and does not need to be installed onto your computer's hard drive to work. The live CD neither alters your system's current OS nor modifies the system hard drive when in use. Live CDs can be used on a system that does not contain a hard drive. DICE, designed to provide legal targets in which to practice and learn pen test skills. The DICE live CDs are real servers that contain real-world challenges. Each disk provides a learning opportunity to explore the world of penetration testing and is intended for beginners and professionals alike. Currently located at www.hereto.net/live-series/ there are multiple live series available to download for free. The advantage to using these live series is that there is no server configuration required. The live CD can simply be dropped into the CD tray, the system configured to boot from the CD, and within minutes a fully functional hackable server is running in the lab. There are 3 publicly available DICE live series: included on the accompanying DVD. Each of them has a different scenario and requires different skills to solve. The easier challenges are the 1.100 and 1.110 scenarios, whereas the more difficult scenario is 2.100. 1.100. This live CD is configured with an Internet Protocol address of 129.168.1.100. No additional configuration of the server is necessary. The scenario for this live CD is that a chief executive officer of a small company has been pressured by the board of directors to have a penetration test done within the company. The CEO, believing his company is secure, feels this is a huge waste of money, especially since he already has a company scan their network for vulnerabilities. To make the board of directors happy, he decides to hire you for a 5-day job because he really doesn't believe the company is insecure. He has contracted you to look at only one server, an old system that only has a web-based list of the company's contact information. This figure is a graphical representation of the penetration test lab with the proper configuration for each device. Hackerdemia. This live CD is not really intended to emulate a real-world server. It was designed to be a training platform where various hacker tools could be used and learned. Similar to the DICE live series, it was developed on the Slack's Linux distribution and is included in the accompanying DVD. It can also be downloaded online at www.herodot.net/hackerdemia/. This figure is a screenshot of an Nmap scan against the Hackerdemia live CD. Multiple services are available and can be attacked using tools available on Backtrack. For those who are familiar with Nmap, the tool is probably one of the most used applications in a penetration test. Nmap can scan a target system and determine which applications are running on the target, as well as the OS used. PWNOS. Developed and maintained by Brady Bloxham, the PWNOS VM image is a Linux distribution with service vulnerabilities that can be exploited using scripts available on milorm.org and can be downloaded at the herodot.net forums. This figure shows the system configuration of the PWNOS server in our pentest lab. Hi there, welcome to my course. In this lecture, you will learn about methodologies. Initiating process group. In the initiating process group, we are attempting to gain approval to begin the project. Projects are usually created to meet some business need. In the case of penetration testing, the need is often to identify the security posture of a system or network. Once the security posture is known, the business can make managerial decisions about any vulnerability identified. The decisions could be correcting the vulnerability, mitigating the threat, accepting the consequences, or transferring the risk. This figure provides the two processes that occur within the initiating process group. Although it may not seem to be much, this phase involves a lot of meetings external to the project team. because penetration testing is a costly endeavor. The client needs to know precisely what is to be included. The project manager will need to refine the project and identify those who have a stake in the project's success. It is not unusual for the two processes within the initiating process group to take weeks, months, or even years. It is also possible for very large projects to be broken up into smaller projects, in which case there would be multiple project charters and distinct lists of stakeholders. Planning process group. The planning processes, as shown in this figure, are methods of obtaining information needed to successfully complete a project. Within the scope of a penetration test, the project manager needs to know how long the project might take, the size of the project team, the estimated cost of the project, what resources are needed, and more. The planning processes can help define the project to a final level of granularity. However, during the course of the project, issues that may delay the completion of the project or drive up the costs will be discovered. By constantly re-evaluating the project and using the planning processes, a project manager can constantly adjust resources and personnel to keep the project on time and under budget. Executing process group. This figure includes a list of processes within the executing process group. This group actively involves penetration test engineers and is often expressed as the do in the plan, do, check, act cycle, as shown in this figure. Within a penetration test project, this is when the engineers conduct their attacks, specifically within the information gathering, vulnerability identification, vulnerability verification, and compromising steps identified. Although there is a lot of activity in the executing processes, results are often compared to expectations listed in documents created in the planning processes, which then cause project expectations to be modified, which then cause activities within the executing processes to change as well. Even in penetration testing, there is a constant cycle of measurement and revision, which offers the opportunity for scope creep. Scope creep occurs when changes are made to the project scope without any mechanisms to control the changes and can push the costs of a project beyond what is acceptable. Closing process group. This figure illustrates the two processes that fall under the closing process group. This is where the final documents are released to the client and contractual agreements are concluded. It is often best to include debriefings on the events of the project with the penetration test team, so lessons can be learned and future projects can be improved. Monitoring and controlling process group. Although there seems to be a natural progression among the previous process groups that mirrors the plan, do, check, act cycle, the PMI has added another process group into the mix, the monitoring and controlling process group. This figure shows the monitoring and controlling process group.